Welcome to Spooky History, and today we're meeting the man with two faces, Edward Mordrake. Content warning, suicide and child death. Edward Mordrake has had quite the afterlife. Over 120 years later, he has a Facebook page with 728 likes, which is more than us. A single post about him has been shared more than 150,000 times on Facebook and liked by over 37,000 people, and his story lives on in film, most recently but not faithfully, in an inspiration for James Wan's film Malignant, which came out in 2021. Mordrake's story itself might spoil parts of the film, so if you want to remain unspoiled, then save this video and come back later. Or just leave it playing on mute so we get the watch time. The word malignant is found in the very earliest versions of the story that we have. An article from 1895 titled "The Wonders of Modern Science, Some Half-Human Monsters Once Thought to Be of the Devil's Brood" by Charles Lowtin Hildreth. It ran first in the Boston Sunday Post on December 8, 1895 and was quickly picked up by other newspapers, including the Parsons Daily Sun on December 11th and the Decatur Herald 3 days later, before gaining its most enduring form when adapted into Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine by two American doctors, George M. Gould and Walter L. Pyle, a collection of bizarre medical cases published in October 1896. As the pithy title suggests, Mordrake was only one of many cases detailed in these articles and books, and so his story is a short one, even for someone dead at the age of 23, which in Victorian times is like ancient. Though light on details, as the earliest one from which all other versions seemingly derive, it is worth staying with. It states that Edward Mordrake was the heir to one of the noblest peerages in England, though he never claimed the title and preferred to live alone in complete seclusion, refusing the visits even of his own family. You see, though he was educated, musical and well brought up, upon the back of his head was another face, that of a beautiful girl, lovely as a dream, hideous as a devil. The female face occupied only a small portion of the posterior part of the skull, yet exhibited every sign of intelligence of a malignant sort, however. But it wasn't a simple deformity that compelled Mordrake to hide away. The face allegedly gained happiness from Mordrake's misery. The eyes would follow the movements of spectators, and the lips would sneer and gibber. No voice was audible, but Mordrake claims that he was kept from his rest at night by the hateful whispers of his devil twin, as he called it, which never sleeps but talks to me forever of such things as they only speak of in hell. No imagination can conceive the dreadful temptations it sets before me. For some unforgiven wickedness of my forefathers, I am knit to this fiend, for a fiend it surely is. He is recorded as saying to his two physicians, Manvers and Treadwell, "I beg and beseech you to crush it out of human semblance, even if I die for it." But the doctors believed his death was the most likely outcome of such an operation and, despite his words, refused to be a part of it. And so, at the age of 23, Mordrake took his own life. His final request was that the demon face might be destroyed before his burial, lest it continues its dreadful whisperings in my grave. By his own wishes, he was interred in a waste place, without stone or legend to mark the grave. Despite the pseudoscientific nature of the publications, very little is given in terms of explanation. So, three theories have been subsequently put forward. The first suggests a form of craniopagus parasiticus, when a parasitic twin head with an undeveloped body is attached to the head of a developed twin. Though cases of this have been recorded according to a 2016 case report, there have only been 10 or fewer recorded cases of craniopagus parasiticus in history, of which only 3 survived past birth and were reliably documented. And of those 3, 2 died before the age of 2, despite surgical attempts to save the life of the autocytic twin in the case of Mana Majd from Egypt. The third, known famously as the two-headed boy of Bengal, lived to be 4 years old and was reported to be in good health until he was bitten by a cobra and died. The parasitic head can be reasonably well developed and show clear signs of independent life. The second theory suggests a form of diprosopus. Different causes have been put forward for this, including an abnormal protein activity or a rare form of conjoined twinning. However, the result is that certain parts of the human face are replicated on the head. Diprosopus can range from having 2 fully formed faces to just a duplication of the nose or eyes. It is also extremely rare, and those affected also typically don't live past childbirth. In 2008, for instance, a young girl with two faces was born in India and survived only 6 weeks. The last theory is an extreme form of an unequal conjoined twin, which, although slightly more common than Craniopagus parasiticus, is still quite rare, with under 50 instances documented since the mid-19th century, most of them ending in stillbirth. According to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, conjoined twins occur once in roughly 50 to 60,000 births, and most are stillborn or cannot survive outside the womb. Of these cases, 25% are males and just 2% are joined at the head. The problem with all these theories is the statement that Mordrake's other face was that of a beautiful woman is, well, it's highly unlikely for parasitic twin, as both the twins would be of the same gender. No theory would explain the face's ability to speak and threaten Mordrake, though a separate mental health condition could suggest some kind of explanation. However, the overall story also requires some further explanation. Charles Lowton Hildreth, the author of the earliest version of the Mordrake story, which the book reprinted without verification, was not a journalist, not a doctor. He was a poet and writer of speculative fiction, what we today might call science fiction, though he also used Gothic, otherworldly themes in his Edgar Allan Poe-style poetry. The 1896 Medical Encyclopedia by Dr. George M. Gould and Dr. David L. Pyle, meanwhile, copied directly from Hildreth's article and was credited only to a lay source. Hildreth claimed to have found these cases described in old reports of the Royal Scientific Society, but the only known Royal Scientific Society was founded in 1970, and nothing about this case could be found in their records, or those of the similarly named Royal Society of London, or about the physicians on the case Manvers and Treadwell in the Dictionary of National Biography, or in fact anywhere other than the Mordrake story. The photos that often crop up on social media in connection to the story are also misleading. The black and white photograph purporting to show Edward Mordrake and his devil twin in profile, which has appeared in internet postings since 2007, appears in fact to be a retouched photo of a wax figure in the Panopticum Wax Museum in Hamburg. The skull picture version was created and uploaded to Instagram by Tom Kubler, a sculptor who sells such things with the caption #EdwardMordrake. And the third most commonly used picture, one seemingly showing Mordrake's mummified head, is apparently a photo of papier-mâché creation by Ewart Schindler, first posted on DeviantArt in 2015. Looking at Hildreth's other cases from the same article also doesn't inspire much confidence. These include the fish woman of Lincoln, a young woman whose legs from the hips downward were covered with shining scales and terminated in the most exact tails of fish, a half-human, half-crab, whose hands and feet end in enormous hard-shelled claws, and Melon, child of Radnor, with a head the size and colour of a melon and no perceptible organs except a vertical slit for their mouth. Mr. Punus of Stratton had feet where his hands should be, and vice versa. The four-eyed man of Cricklade had 2 sets of eyes, one above the other. Jackass Johnny was cursed with a pair of enormously long furry ears, exactly like those of an ass. The Norfolk spider was a monstrous thing that crawled upon its belly with 6 hairy jointed legs with claws and a human head. Long-time followers of spooky history will not be surprised that such stories could make it into the newspapers, as we have covered in previous episodes how short stories about the Mary Celeste were reprinted as first-hand accounts, and how the Washington Post once suggested a cursed mummy was responsible for the sinking of the Titanic only days after the disaster. This was the era of yellow journalism, or as we know it today, clickbait, or as Donald Trump famously said,
"You are fake news."
Where anything is good as long as it gets people to engage with your content. So really, why shouldn't the New York Sun claim in 1835 that there was an alien civilization on the moon, or the New York World say in 1874 that there was a tree that ate human flesh? They were just covering all sides of the topic, and as we've learned through modern social media, all opinions are equally valid. It is, of course, possible there is a nugget of truth to this story, which has simply been dramatically embellished over time. However, it is the incredibly dramatic version which, aided by fake photos, continues to this day, bolstered by decades of writers in the strange but true genre who presented this tale as fact in such books as Frank Edwards' Strange People, 1961, and the 1977 edition of the Book of Lists. The story has also cropped up less factually in Tom Waits' song Poor Edward for his album Alice, and 3 episodes in the series American Horror Story Freak Show, Edward Mordrake Part 1, Edward Mordrake Part 2, and Curtain Call. And as we have said, inspired Ingrid Bezout to write the recent film Malignant, directed by James Wan, who seems to like to give us spooky history stuff to talk about. There's gotta be something to talk about with Saw. Whether factual or not, the story of Edward Mordrake continues to fascinate, either as the story of a tortured soul beyond the medical help of his era, or as an embodiment of the same fear of our own twisted duality. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Spooky History. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all those things really helps us, so please do. If you have suggestions for future episodes, leave them in the comments, we love to hear ideas. Thanks for watching, and please, do have nightmares. Goodbye.